Tonight, we settle in somewhere wonderfully awkward, Edwardian England, where being a little soft around the middle could make you either a respected gentleman of substance or the talk of the entire parish, depending almost entirely on your bank balance and the mood of your doctor. This is the era when Britain quietly decided that your waistline was everyone's business. The kings, the corset makers, the insurance mans, and that one relative who never let us anything go. Imagine you have just woken up in 1903. Somewhere in England, in a body the new century has not quite decided how to feel about yet. You blink awake in a heavy brass bed, weaking morning light filtering through the lace curtains. And for one merciful second, you feel perfectly fine. Then you remember the year. It is 1903, and your body, soft, round, generously upholstered in all the places the magazines have only just started to disapprove of, has dropped you into the strangest possible moment in history to be fat. Because right now, England genuinely cannot make up its mind about you. Your grandmother would have called your figure a sign of health, comfort, and good fortune. Your doctor is beginning to mutter. The king shares your exact silhouette and wears it like part of the crown jewels. And somewhere across town, a thin woman is already preparing to describe you as stout, which in Edwardian English is the most beautifully polite insult ever invented. You have not even sat up yet, and already you are a matter of public debate. Now, let us talk about the man who complicates everything. His Majesty King Edward VIII. The most powerful endorsement of a generous figure England has ever produced. The king is, to put it with great affection and total accuracy, enormous. His waist measures something close to 4 feet around. His appetite is the stuff of legend. Pum-tum by those brave enough. He wears his bulk, not as a flaw, but as a flag. Proof of prosperity, leisure, and a life entirely free from the indignity of hunger. For the gentlemen of England, this is permission written in royal flesh. A man who dines, a man who has arrived, while the magazines fret about fat. The throne itself is sitting on a great deal of it, and nobody dares say a word. But here is the catch. Whether your figure was admired or pitied depended very little on the figure itself, and very much on who was wearing it, and on the size of the fortune attached. In Edwardian England, fat and thin were not merely shapes. They were a class system you wore on your body. The laboring poor were thin, often brutally so. Ground down by long hours, hard work, and the simple arithmetic of not having enough to eat. Thinness to the Edwardian eye could whisper of poverty, of hunger, of a life spent on your feet. The comfortable classes, meanwhile, could afford to be round, and roundness announced it. Here is a person who eats well, sits often, and never once worried about the price of meat. A fat factory owner and a thin factory worker told the same story from opposite ends. So your soft midsection in the right drawing room was less a problem and more a quietly worn boast. I have never gone without. And here lies the trap that makes your moment so strange. The old equation, fat equals wealth equals admiration, is exactly the thing beginning to crack beneath your feet, when only the wealthy could be round. Roundness was a mark of distinction, but once a clerk or a shopkeeper's wife could grow comfortable too. The rich needed a new way to set themselves apart, and the new way quietly arriving is the opposite of the old one. slenderness, discipline, the managed body. These will become the next status symbol. Precisely because they take effort and leisure, the poor cannot spare. You are standing at the hinge, then here is the corset. For women, and quite a few men, the corset is non-negotiable. You are laced into it each morning like a sausage into its skin. It rearranges your internal organs, pushes your liver sideways, and squeezes your ribs until breathing becomes more of an aspiration than a reflex. A stout woman in a corset is not hidden. She is rebranded. The flesh is still there. It has simply been redistributed into the approved silhouette, an S-curve that suggests, well, that you have never eaten a pie in your life. The corset is the Edwardian answer to a question nobody quite dared ask. Aloud, how do you keep enjoying your breakfast when your breakfast has just become a moral issue? Then there are the cures, and here the century goes properly mad. Having decided that fat might be a problem, Edwardian England sets about solving it with a creativity that would worry a modern poison control unit. There is Fletcherizing, the practice of chewing each mouthful 32 times, once for every tooth, until the food liquefies and your jaw files for early retirement. There are reducing soaps that promise to melt fat away in the bath. There are thyroid extracts, sheep gland implants, and, yes, preparations of arsenic taken by people who would otherwise have described themselves as perfectly rational. There are sweat cabinets, vibration belts, and electrical contraptions that jiggle your midsection in a manner that promises much and delivers little. Most of these cures have one thing in common. They do not work. Several have a second thing in common. They are genuinely dangerous. But the appetite for them is bottomless. Because the appetite for a quick fix to a brand new anxiety is always bottomless. And then there is exercise, which the Edwardian takes up reluctantly and in the wrong clothes. Brisk walking is permitted. Cycling is tolerated, provided you do not enjoy it too much. A stout gentleman might be persuaded to wobble red-faced down a country lane in pursuit of his health, returning an hour later with the complexion of a boiled beet and a profound new respect for the sofa. Women are encouraged in calisthenics, which sounds vigorous, but mostly involves raising one's arms to shoulder height in a manner thought unlikely to disturb the internal arrangements. The idea that one might sweat on purpose for fun has not yet been invented. Meanwhile, the weighing machine has arrived, and it is a public instrument. You step onto it on a railway platform or a seaside promenade, drop your penny, and the dial swings round to broadcast your weight to anyone passing. There is no privacy here. Your body has become data, and the data has become a public event. Insurance men are beginning to compile actuarial tables that translate your waistline into a number of years you can expect to keep living. The photograph has arrived too, and now you can see yourself as others. See you, frozen, flat, and unforgiving. And then there is the dinner party. The table groans under 11 courses. Soup, fish, fowl, game, roast, pudding, savory, and several stops in between. Everyone at the table is reading, in their morning paper, about the perils of their own waistline while loading a plate that would alarm a field hospital. The contradiction is so total, so cheerfully unexamined, that no one at the table so much as raises an eyebrow. They are all doing precisely the same thing. This is the Edwardian condition in miniature. Abundance and anxiety served on the same tray. And at the end of it, in the drawing room, with teacups and a tiered stand of scones, the smiling enemies gather, A thin relative nibbles dry toast and radiates judgment over the teapot. You are described to your face as comfortable as amply proportioned. As having a fine constitution, each word lands like a small, terrifically aimed dart. So there it is. A single day spent inside a body the new century could not quite forgive. You were laced into a corset that rearranged your insides, weighed by a machine on a public platform, frowned at by a doctor, who was mostly guessing, and offered cures made of soap, sheep glands, and quiet poison. You chewed a single grape into oblivion, wobbled, red-faced, down a country lane, surrendered your good intentions to a tiered stand of scones, and ran a drawing room full of smiling enemies, armed with nothing but teacups. And through all of it, you simply existed, an ordinary round person, in the strangest morning the body has ever known. You are not at the end of some ancient prejudice. Inet, Twanats, Inets, Tas, Nas, Inak, Heol, Stone, Nas, En, Me, She, Ya, Inananan, Kutna, Nana, Len, Wodena, Inai. In very thirst fumbling days, rest easy, breathe deep. You have earned it. Good night.